Hey everyone, I am so excited to guide you through this explainer today, because we're tackling one of the most absolutely fascinating and honestly sometimes kind of mind-bending concepts in private international law. But hey, don't worry, we're not going to get bogged down in dense, confusing legalese. Instead, I want you to picture something much simpler. I want you to picture a game of ping pong. Only, in this match, the players aren't athletes. They are entire countries. And the ball they're hitting back and forth across the table, well, that ball is the law itself.
So, picture this. You've got a legal standoff between two sovereign nations. You have a case with foreign elements. Maybe it's a citizen of one country who's been living in another, and a court has to decide whose rules actually apply. Country A looks at its rulebook and says, well, Country B's laws should govern this. But then Country B looks at its own rulebook and says, no way, Country A's laws should govern this. So what do you do when two massive legal systems are just standing there essentially pointing fingers at each other? Well, that is exactly the puzzle we're going to solve today.
All right, let's just dive right in. Here is the agenda for our match today. First up, we've got the global legal arena. Second, the legal ping pong match itself. Third, we'll look at the types of Renvoi volleys. And finally, breaking the endless loop.
Okay, part one, the global legal arena. Let's go ahead and set the stage where these high-stakes cross-border disputes actually happen.
Now, what's really cool here is the literal translation of the word itself. The doctrine is called Renvoi, which comes straight from the French word meaning to send back or to return. And honestly, this is exactly why the ping pong analogy is so perfect. It's a conflict of laws principle applied in Philippine private international law and globally too, to figure out which country's law ultimately governs a dispute. It is entirely about the act of returning the serf.
Now, I know we're using this fun game analogy, right? But the stakes here, they're incredibly real. I mean, we're not just doing a theoretical exercise for law professors. Look at this. When we talk about personal status, we are literally talking about the legitimacy of children or international adoptions. Under capacity, we're talking about whether someone can legally enter into a binding business contract or even get married. And under property, we're dealing with who inherits a family home or the validity of a dying person's last will. We are talking about real human lives, massive fortunes, and family legacies just hanging in the balance of this legal game.
All right, moving on to part two. The legal ping pong match. Let's actually step up to the table and see how this conflict plays out in real life. Okay, here's our scenario. This is going to be the very first serve of the match. Say a Filipino citizen passes away, but at the time of their death, they are domiciled in France, meaning they're officially living and residing there. Now, a Filipino court is asked to determine the validity of the deceased's will and exactly how their property should be distributed.
And wow, this perfectly illustrates where the problem starts. On one hand, the Philippine conflict of laws rules says that for certain property and succession matters, you have to look to the law of the place where the person was domiciled, and that points straight to France. But on the other hand, the French conflict of laws rule says, wait a minute, for the validity of a will, we don't look at domicile, we look at the national law of the deceased, and the deceased was a Filipino citizen. So French law points right back to the Philippines.
So, let's watch the volley. The Philippine court steps up to serve. They look at their rulebook and say, well, since the decedent was domiciled in France, this case should be decided under French law. Boom, the ball goes over the net to France. And remember, the Philippine court isn't just looking at France's internal inheritance laws, they're looking at the entirety of French law, which includes France's own conflict of laws rules.
But wait, France is waiting right there at the edge of the table. The French legal system catches the case, looks at the nationality of the deceased, and says, no, our rules say matters involving the will of a foreign national are governed by their home country. Philippine law should apply. And just like that, France hits the ball aggressively right back across the net to the Philippines.
And suddenly the ball is just hovering right over the Philippine side of the table again. The court literally has to freeze time and ask themselves, should we accept that referral back? Do they accept this return? That decision, to accept the referral back and just apply their own internal law, is the absolute essence of the doctrine of Renvoi. Which brings us to part three, types of Renvoi volleys. Because as you'll see, not all return shots look exactly the same. So there are two distinct types of volleys we really need to understand here. The first is single renvoi, which is also known as remission. And the second is double renvoi, also called transmission, or sometimes the foreign court theory. Let's break those down. Okay, so remission. This is exactly what we just saw in our France and Philippines example. It's your classic one-on-one match. The Philippine court sends it to France, and the French law refers the matter straight back to the law of the forum,
meaning right back to the Philippines. It is a direct back-and-forth volley over the net. Simple enough, right? But then we have transmission, and honestly, this is where the game gets kind of wild. Imagine the Philippine court serves the ball to France, but French law doesn't refer it back to the Philippines. Instead, due to some other connecting factor, maybe it's where the property is actually physically located, French law refers the matter on to the law of a completely third state, like Germany or Japan. Suddenly, a third player has entered our ping-pong match. The ball isn't sent back, it's transmitted onward.
All right, part 4, breaking the endless loop. Because at some point, someone actually has to stop the game, right?
Think about it. If everyone just keeps passing the ball back and forth, the game literally never ends. And those real-world families we talked about, they're just left in legal limbo waiting for their inheritance. So how does a court stop the game? First, the forum court refers the case to the foreign state. Second, the foreign state refers it back. Now, the third step is where the magic happens. The forum court actually accepts the referral back. Why? To avoid a circular reference. The ultimate goal of private international law is finding a practical solution and maintaining international harmony. By accepting the Renvoi at step 3, the court effectively catches the ball, stops the match, and just applies its own internal substantive law to decide the case once and for all.
But wait, there is a major catch here. Renvoi is absolutely not automatic. You can think of the courts as very strict referees. They generally view Renvoi with a lot of caution. If a party is just trying to manipulate the system to get a more favorable set of laws, a sneaky practice called forum shopping, the referee will absolutely blow the whistle. Furthermore, if accepting the foreign law's referral would somehow violate Philippine public policy or constitutional constraints, the court will completely reject the Renvoi. The referee always has the final say on whether that return volley is actually allowed.
To really anchor this whole theory in reality, let's talk about the leading case in Philippine jurisprudence on this exact issue, Bellis v. Bellis. It's a legendary case for students of private international law because it perfectly demonstrates how courts analyze this exact ping-pong match. So in the Bellis case, a man who was both a citizen of Texas and domiciled in Texas died, and he left behind properties in the Philippines. Naturally, the Philippine court looked to Texas law, but here is the massive twist. When they looked at Texas law, Texas conflict of laws rules did not refer the matter back to the Philippines. Nope. Texas internal law simply governed the distribution of the estate based on the decedent's nationality. So the Supreme Court of the Philippines did not apply Renvoi. In our ping-pong analogy, the Philippine court served the ball to Texas, but Texas just caught the ball and put it right in their pocket. There was no return volley, and therefore there was simply no Renvoi to accept. So if you want the ultimate memorable takeaway from our entire match today, it's this official definition right here. Renvoi is the doctrine in conflict of laws whereby the forum court, after referring a case to the law of another state, accepts the foreign state's conflict of laws rule that refers the matter back to the law of the forum or to the law of a third state. That is the legal ping-pong match summarized in a single, perfectly crafted sentence.
I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to ponder. If every country just sent the law back to someone else, who really has the final say? Renvoi shows us the beautiful, complicated limits of mutual respect and sovereignty, which is often known as international comedy. It reminds us that while nations try so hard to respect one another's sovereignty by looking at each other's rules, eventually a judge has to step up, catch the ball, and make a decision so that real people can actually move on with their lives. Thank you so much for exploring this fascinating legal doctrine with me today. Keep asking those big questions and keep looking for the structure behind the complex ideas.